Martial arts weapons and other weapons throughout history have used the same classical pattern in understanding how to fight. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. Stay tuned. Welcome to Shihan's Dojo. I'm Shihan Marty Husband, and I want to talk to you today about the Kumitachi. Now, Kumitachi is basically the simple way that people are taught to use weapons in classical style martial arts and other styles. Now, I want you to understand a couple things before we get started here. That when you're doing this pattern, it is a pattern to train your arms and eyes and mind on how a weapon will travel. It is no way intended to show you how to use those particular weapons, because in many ways it's just a demonstrative exercise to build up strength and understand angles. But it's very important that you know how to do or use these angles. When you want to start practicing these type of weapons in karate or jiu-jitsu or kung fu, make sure you have somebody who knows what they're doing teach you. Just don't learn it off of YouTube and expect to do it, because things can be more dangerous than they appear. With that being said, let's get into what the Kumitachi is about. Kumitachi is basically the base pattern that 90% of the handheld weapons are used in most fighting systems, even outside of the martial arts. It's something you'll see in not only kung fu, karate, eskrima, to sword fighting that you saw from the early Europeans, to Mongol fighting. It doesn't matter. These non-projectile type of weapons do have a very certain pattern that can be used and studied. Once these patterns are studied, you can understand what angles are going to be available to you in case they're ever blocked or parried. The Kumitachi is basically a pattern. So there's only 8 distinctive, and when I say distinctive patterns that are used, they can variate throughout the whole thing. And when they variate, you could learn to do them with both hands. I suggest if you're learning weapons to know how to use weapons in both hands. You never know in a self-defense situation if you have one hand hurt, the other can do the work for you. So let's get started in memorizing the Kumitachi. The first one will start off with a right-handed person. Basically, you can use the left-handed. It's just opposite in number and hand. So if you're practicing right or left-handed, remember the numbering system is exactly the same, only from the opposite side. The right-handed person will come down at an angle between 30 to 60 degrees, usually around 45, and split the middle right down in front of them to pass in front of their body. Now, like I said, it's elongated here when we're watching it, so we understand that we're understanding the pattern. If you ever watch somebody really throw that knows what they're doing, their arm would never be that far out away from their body. Once the first one reaches its bottom, it's going to come around into number 2. Number 2 comes up over on the opposite side shoulder and down again between 30 and 60 degree angle. This allows basically a 45 degree angle from the other side. Number 3 comes basically parallel across the body. Yes, it does take 60 to 120 degrees off there, usually along a 90 degree plane, but remember, these can be done high or low. So it comes across the body in a parallel line. Now as your arm crosses your body, 4 switches back and goes parallel across the other way, changing the direction. Now, as you can see, the next one, once 4 gets past the body, it loops down to the bottom where it comes out at number 5. Number 5 is basically the same thing we talked about earlier, where we're basically getting a 45 degree angle up from the right side up through the body there. And as we come up, we circle it down on our left side and bring it up a 45 degree angle across our body again. So we're basically covering the angles in that X pattern. The next one is the number 7, which comes down straight over the top of your head and down. Number 8, the final part of the pattern, it could be a poke, stab, or lunge, however you want to look at it. But each one of these, their heights can vary depending on how the stick is being held in self-defense or for use or whatever you're trying to do with the weapons. So when training with this, be aware of what the angles are you're using and make sure you have memorized those numbers. And also, just flip it over to the other side where the left side becomes 1. Alright, and after you do that, you just go through and give the numbers. So basically, the main hand that's holding the object holds all the odd numbers, and the even numbers are on the other side. The odd number also comes from the top. A stab, a poke, or a thrust, whatever you want to call it, is usually the number 8. And it can be, like I said, be done at any level. Now, there are modifications of that. We can go over some other time. Taiho Jutsu only uses a 5. on its modifications and just calls things high-lows. And there's also other modifications that can be done with different weapons, such as bow staff and three-sectional staffs and that will break the pattern just a little bit. Once you have this pattern memorized, then you can just start running through it faster and just speed up as you go along till you get better and better and better at it. Eventually, as you continue building up your speed, you'll get more comfortable with it. If you're holding a stick or some other weapon, make sure you're not holding it completely down at the bottom. Leave 3 to 4 inches under, especially if it's not a handled weapon. It's very important if you're trained with those sticks to know where your hand is at all times on that. Now, as you can see, this will be a real quick glimpse on how to use like a knife with this here. I'm actually using a cold steel practice knife here. I wouldn't suggest you use a real one unless you're used to handling weapons. But using a cold steel knife, you can run through the same pattern. Now, don't think that this is a complete knife pattern. It's not. It's just a basic pattern of angles. As a matter of fact, with a knife, there are basically 24 movements that are used with a knife, which we're only covering 8 of them right here. So that's for another time. In later videos, we'll talk about the angles of parry. Believe it or not, these attacks that we're doing are also parries. But when you're parrying and blocking, there is some differences in how you have to use your weapon in order to achieve what you need to. And we'll cover that another time because it's a little longer actually than what we were talking about memorizing this pattern. Theories and applications are very hard to build upon, so you have to understand that when you're practicing with this, take it one at a time. Don't rush through it. Memorize it till it becomes a part of you. Once you have memorized it and it is a part of you, go ahead and use both sticks in both hands. Try doing it at the same time. You'll find at first it's a little confusing, but once you do it enough, you'll be able to see you can use the sticks in the same pattern and actually do them in opposite patterns. If you really want to get good at using sticks, find somebody who knows Kali, Eskrima, or understands the basics of stick fighting. A lot of your Taiho Jutsu classes will have those kind of things. So remember, if you've not trained with weapons, don't do it on your own. You can hurt yourself. And if you have any questions, leave me a comment. I'll try to answer them and see what I can do to help you. Now, if you like this video, click like down there and share it with your friends so we can help Shihan's Dojo grow. And if you're here for the first time, jab that subscribe button and punch that bell so we can notify you when you have a new video. And again, thank you for your valuable time. We'll talk soon.